For decades, if you looked at Latin America, Chile was the story, the beacon of stability, of economic success. But today? Well, that nation is standing at a massive crossroads. It's facing a choice that could literally redefine its entire future. So let's break it down. How did they get here? And what's on the line?
So in this next presidential runoff, you've got two completely opposite visions for the country. I mean, polar opposites. On one side, you have Jeanette Jara. She's with the ruling left-wing coalition, and her whole campaign is about protecting and expanding social programs. And then on the other side, you've got Jose Antonio Cast. He's from the conservative Republican Party, and he has one singular focus: restoring public order. Look, this is way more than just politics. We're talking about a decision on the fundamental soul of the country.
So you gotta ask, right? How did a country that was famous for its consensus, for its stability, end up so polarized? Well, to really get it, you have to understand two things: the land itself and the wild history that shaped it.
Okay, let's start with the geography. And believe me, in Chile, the land isn't just some pretty backdrop for a postcard. It's basically destiny. It's a source of both its incredible wealth and some of its biggest, most dangerous challenges.
Just take a look at a map. Chile it's like an island, but on a continent. It's this impossibly long, narrow ribbon of land. We're talking 4,300 kilometers, completely trapped. On one side, you have the Andes, one of the highest mountain ranges on the planet. On the other, the massive Pacific Ocean. This incredible isolation, it's forged a really unique national identity, and it's also why the country is so centralized.
And what's crazy is that within this skinny little country, you've got pretty much every climate you can imagine. Up north, there's the Atacama, literally the driest desert in the world. But hidden under that dry crust, that's the country's treasury. Massive, massive deposits of copper and lithium. Then you've got the Central Valley, the lush, fertile heartland. And way down south, that's Patagonia, a totally wild place, a maze of fjords, glaciers, and some of the most powerful winds on Earth.
But here's the thing, that extreme geography is becoming more and more dangerous. Just think about this. Very recently, on November 17th, a freak blizzard just slammed into Torres del Paine, one of Patagonia's most famous parks. The winds hit 193 kilometers per hour. That's a Category 3 hurricane. It caught everyone, especially hikers, completely by surprise. Tragically, 5 international tourists died from exposure.
And this is a perfect, chilling illustration of the new reality Chile is facing. This wasn't just some random freak accident. No, experts are calling it a grim indicator of how climate change is taking the natural risks of this extreme land and just cranking them up to a whole new level.
And that volatility, that swing from one extreme to another, it's not just in the weather. It's baked into the country's history. You can almost think of Chilean politics as this giant pendulum, just swinging violently back and forth between radical, leftist experiments and hard-right authoritarian order.
Really, there are 4 key moments you need to know to understand today's crisis. So, back in 1970, Salvador Allende gets democratically elected, a Marxist president. His socialist experiment, though, gets cut short in 1973 by a really violent military coup, led by General Augusto Pinochet. Fast forward to 1990, democracy finally returns, and that kicks off a long, stable period. But all that stability, it just shattered in 2019 with something called the estallido social, the social outburst.
Now, those 2 decades after 1990, a lot of people call them a golden age. And in some ways they were. Poverty absolutely plummeted. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. The center-left governments, this coalition called the Concertation, they kept the free market economic model that was built by the dictatorship. So yeah, they reduced poverty, but they never touched the deep structural inequality that was baked into the system. And that simmering resentment, it finally boiled over and just exploded in October 2019. Millions of people poured into the streets demanding fundamental change. This led to a huge process to write a whole new constitution. But the whole thing was a disaster. It failed, twice. First, a really progressive, far-left draft got crushed at the polls, rejected by 62% of voters. Okay, so they try again. This time, a conservative, far-right draft is written, and that one also rejected.
So what's the result of all this? Honestly, Chileans are just exhausted. After years of protests and failed votes, the country is suffering from what people are calling constitutional fatigue. The basic social contract feels broken. And that political center, the one that governed for 30 years, it's completely collapsed. It's gone. And that has left this huge vacuum that the extremes are now rushing to fill.
Okay, so in the middle of this crisis, the current government decided to make a massive bet.
a huge gamble on a new national project. And the idea is to use Chile's unique geology, its mineral wealth, to help power the entire world's green energy transition.
But first, you need a little context here. Just look at who Chile sells its stuff to. Almost 40%, 40, of everything Chile exports goes to one single country, China, and it's mostly just raw copper. When you're that dependent on one buyer, diversifying your economy isn't just a good idea, it's a matter of national security.
So, this is where the national lithium strategy comes in. Now get this, Chile has the world's largest and, crucially, the most easily accessible lithium reserves on the planet. You know, the key ingredient for every electric car battery. The old way was just letting private companies dig it up and ship it out raw. This new strategy? Totally different. It's a state-led plan to take control of the resource, and this is the key part, to create industries inside Chile that add value to it.
So how does it work? It's basically a three-step plan. Step 1, the state's own copper company, Codelco, now gets a majority stake in all the big, strategic projects. Step 2, they just signed a landmark deal with the main private company, SQM, locking in that state control all the way to 2060. And Step 3, they're inviting new companies to come and invest, but with a big condition. You have to partner with the state, and you have to help build a local battery industry right there in Chile.
And the amount of money we're talking about here is just enormous. The projections show this strategy could bring in $5 billion a year in revenue for the government by 2035. That's not just extra cash. That's a whole new pillar for the national budget, standing right next to copper. And that money could potentially fund the exact social programs that people were demanding in the streets back in 2019.
And if you think that's ambitious, wait till you hear what's next. Beyond lithium, there's an even bigger bet: green hydrogen. The goal is to use that insane solar power in the northern desert and those crazy powerful winds down south to produce the world's cheapest green hydrogen by 2030. And this isn't just a dream. Europe is backing it with a $1 billion fund to help make it a reality. So, all of this brings us right back to where we started. Now that you have the context, the extreme geography, the fractured history, this massive economic bet, now we can really understand the profound choice that Chileans are facing in this runoff election.
Okay, take a look at these results from the first round. I mean, wow, it was incredibly tight. You've got Jara on the left, who came in first with just under 27%. Then you have Cost on the right behind her with 24%. But the real story here, the thing everyone is talking about, is that third bar. That's the anti-politics populist, Franco Parisi. He pulled in a massive 20% of the vote.
And what that means is that Paris's voters are now the kingmakers. They will decide this election. And when you look at who they are, it seems to give José Antonio Cast a real structural advantage. These voters are motivated by two big things: cracking down on immigration and economic libertarianism. And those issues, they align way more closely with Cast's tough on crime, secure the borders message than they do with Jara's progressive platform.
So, when you boil it all down, the choice is incredibly stark. A vote for Jara is a vote to double down on this new, state-led economic model. It's a bet that green minerals can pay for a much bigger, stronger welfare state. A vote for Cast, on the other hand, is a vote to put security and order above everything else, and to go back to the free market principles that really defined Chile for the last few decades.
You know, for a long time, Chile provided a model, for better and for worse, that was copied all over Latin America, all over the developing world. So the big question now is, as it tries to navigate this incredible crossroads, this choice between state control and market freedom, between social rights and public order, what path is it going to show the world this time?